Breaking news this morning, we have an eyewitness video from Swanton where a train derailment after hitting a car around 10:30 last night. Now, no one was hurt, but we do want to warn you, this is raw video and footage may be disturbing.
At 10:30 p.m. on the night of June 6, 2019, Norfolk Southern Intermodal Train 25Z, bound for Chicago, struck a vehicle that was parked on the main line at North Main Street in Swanton, Ohio. Abandoned by the driver, the vehicle was struck at track speed of 60 miles per hour. The speeding train, which was immediately thrown into emergency, derailed as the locomotives continued through the crossover switch at milepost 307. The vehicle was lodged into the switch, which caused many of the train's cars and containers to jump the track. Thankfully, there were no fatalities, but just barely. Living right next to the crossover, Ed Pointinger and his wife Tia were asleep in their home. They were immediately woke by the loud sound of the train as the intermodal containers piled high in their backyard, nearly crashing into their home.
We thought it was a tornado coming through. The bed was literally jumping up and down, and we're literally 50 feet from the tracks. But we got up, the power went off instantly. We got up, I opened up the back door, I seen the train car in my backyard, in my driveway, and I told my wife, we gotta get out, because there's a propane tank right here at the switcher, at the switching rail or whatever, and it was pierced, and there was propane terrible. The smell was terrible. I still have it in my nostrils. But so we got out and we started going down the road. We started pounding on people's doors, telling them to get out because there was a train wreck down here. And some good friends of ours came and got us, and we went away for a couple hours, and then we came back, and this is what we were sitting with.
The next morning, on June 7th, we set up to document the derailment from Ed and Tia's home. It was truly a miracle that they survived the wreck, considering these intermodal containers were only a few feet from smashing into their house and garage.
We had just gone to bed, and we heard a god-awful noise, and it got louder and louder and louder and louder, and our whole house was shaking. And we instantly jumped up, and then all of a sudden it just stopped, because it seemed like it was never ending. It seemed like it would never stop. And it stopped, and I came out the back door, I opened up the door, and I looked at Tia. Well, when I opened up the back door, there was a train car right there. And I told Tia, I said, we gotta get the hell out of here. So we grabbed our necessities, ran out the front door. Well, our neighbor was already on his way over here to make sure that we were awake. So we went down the road and just started knocking on the doors, telling everybody to get out, and it hit a propane tank there, a 1,000-gallon propane tank, and it exploded, and all you could smell was propane. So we didn't know what the train was carrying or what, so we just scooted out. The only thing I could recollect it would sound like is a tornado. And there was explosions, of course, the transformer went down and then the propane tank, but a tornado, I would say. And it just, like I said, it progressively got louder and louder and louder, and it went through my mind, is this ever gonna stop? It just seemed like it had to have stopped sometime, because either that or we would have been dead.
After seeing all this happen, are you gonna go play the lotto finally?
Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
That's one thing that everybody's been saying, Ed needs to play the lotto.
One thing, we are very fortunate that these were all empty cars. We were thinking about scenarios yesterday. If this would have been rolled steel or cars on here, this whole neighborhood probably would have been wiped out.
Tia, what was going through your head at that time?
I don't really know. Just grab your shoes and purse and leave.
when you saw all these cars in your backyard when the sun finally came out, what was your reaction?
I don't know. I don't know. Unbelievable. I mean, it was just truly unbelievable.
So when it happened, tell me a little bit about the actual damage to your property. Your buildings weren't damaged, but they were awful close.
They were close. If you look over here, there was a car actually dug in right behind my two vehicles. And when it hit, it threw stones everywhere, up against the house, the trailer, the cars. Broke the one window on the car, but that's realistically all the damage we got.
When they came through the next day and started moving these cars around, what was it like when you saw those big movers come through? What exactly did they do?
They were literally throwing the cars off the tracks. They were just throwing them off, and there was like a K5 dozer down here, just moving them down, moving out of the way.
So have you guys heard anything about the woman that decided to park her car on the track? Have you guys heard anything about that?
I heard she turned herself in.
Good. Didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any advice for anybody that lives next to a railroad track if something like this happens to them?
Get out.
just be prepared to run.
Yeah.
Overall, though, as far as working with the railroad, as far as Norfolk Southern goes, have they been pretty professional? And
Yes. Supposedly they're going to cut them all up, and they'll bring in a train car that's like a dumpster, I guess, and just start throwing them in the dumpsters.
Throughout the day, Norfolk Southern would work tirelessly to clear the main line of debris. With both tracks blocked and destroyed by the derailment, R.J. Corman was called in to assist with the cleanup effort. With every passing minute, more and more high-priority freight trains were being delayed by the massive derailment. With a population of 3,800 people, Swanton is the epitome of small-town USA. Located 18 miles to the west of downtown Toledo, Norfolk Southern's Chicago line runs right through the center of town. With an estimated train count of 60 per 24-hour period, the Chicago line, part of Norfolk Southern's Dearborn Division, is one of the busiest railroad lines in the United States. This corridor is also the straightest double-track main line in North America, with 67 miles of continuous straight track between Toledo, Ohio, and Butler, Indiana. Built in the late 1850s, this line would become part of the Lakeshore and Michigan Southern Railroad, and later the New York Central System. Due to the derailment, stopped trains in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania meant extreme congestion for this already busy main line. With that in mind, we planned to return the following day to watch the levee break. On the morning of June 8th, we returned to the Chicago line to capture a parade of trains between Bryan and Swanton, Ohio. With trains backed up for 2 days in a row, it was guaranteed to be an eventful day of rail fanning on the Dearborn Division. Our first train of the day, led by Foreign Power, was 22K. This train originated in Chicago and is bound for New York State. About 20 minutes later, June 7th's intermodal train 20K would take its turn through Bryan at track speed. is a small town in northwest Ohio with a population close to 9,000 people. The city was once a crossroads for the Cincinnati Northern Railroad and the Lakeshore and Michigan Southern. To some, it's known as the capital city of northwest Ohio. Bryan is also home to the Spangler Candy Company, which is known around the world for producing Dum Dum suckers. Amtrak serves Bryan with the Lakeshore Limited. The Lakeshore Limited is an overnight Amtrak passenger train service between Chicago and the northeastern United States. The train uses the main line of the former New York Central Railroad, part of which is now the Empire Corridor. In Albany, New York, it divides with separate sections serving New York City and Boston. Amtrak began the service in 1975. Bryan's small Amshack is available for passengers to take shelter during the cold winter months in the Midwest. The small platform, directly across the original Lakeshore and Michigan Southern Depot, makes for the perfect spot to watch trains. Our next eastbound intermodal was 26W, which was bound for Conway, Pennsylvania. Due to another train occupying the main line between Bryan and STRYKER, 26W would slow to a stop at the station platform to wait for another passing westbound to clear track 1. If you look closely, you can see the stopped manifest train on the horizon looking east. A hot axle needed to be replaced on a freight car, so the train was parked to allow the car department time for replacing the axle. While 26W was stopped in Bryan, westbound hotshot intermodal train 25Z would speed through town with 10 locomotives in tow. 25Z is a daily E-Rail New Jersey to Chicago, Illinois intermodal train. About an hour later, after train 26W had departed Bryan on Main 1, a very short 14N would make an appearance. The train's lack of cars likely meant that this was an extra section of June 7th's train, which was delayed due to the derailment in Swanton. After capturing 14N at Bryan, we ventured to the east to watch Norfolk Southern's railcar maintenance crew replace a hot axle on a freight car. It's not often that you get to document something like this on such a busy mainline, but sometimes it's the only option the railroads have. Otherwise, another major derailment could occur. With Norfolk Southern's main already affected by the derailment in Swanton, Dearborn Division management weren't willing to take any more chances. In the afternoon, we decided to set up our cameras in STRYKER. This popular railfan location is home to another classic Lakeshore and Michigan Southern depot and a photogenic grain elevator on the west side of town. Our first train at STRYKER would be westbound Manifest 13Q, which was led by EMD SD70 ACE number 1056. About an hour later, another westbound manifest train would come into view. This time it was train 39E, a daily Wayne, Michigan to Elkhart, Indiana train that often moves coil steel out of the Motor City. Until 2015, 38 and 39E operated on the Amtrak Michigan line between Wayne and Jackson. After train 39E, train 21Z would be the next westbound train through STRYKER. 21Z is a daily Rutherford, Pennsylvania to Chicago, Illinois, high-priority intermodal freight train. With the afternoon giving way to the evening, we captured westbound intermodal train 23M at track speed with another SD70 ACE in the lead. "20 minutes later, we captured June 8th's train 14N as it continued east over track 2. In the distance, the headlight of hotshot intermodal train 23Z could be seen over main track 1. Leading the intermodal west was Norfolk Southern AC44C6M, number 4072, in fresh horsehead paint. STRYKER is a small town of 1,400 people located in Williams County, Ohio. The village was named for John STRYKER of Rome, New York, a prominent Michigan Southern and Northern Indiana Railroad official. It was also once home to William J. Knight, a captor of the general in the Civil War's Great Locomotive Chase. The depot at STRYKER was constructed in 1900 after the original depot burned in a fire. Half an hour later, Train 205 would speed through STRYKER with 2 thoroughbred Dash 9s on the point of the train. 205 is a daily Buffalo, New York to Chicago, Illinois train that stops to work Toledo's Mega Yard before continuing to its final destination. Yet another perfect meet at STRYKER. We watched as eastbound intermodal train 24Z passed by the westbound 205. It was certainly intermodal mania on the Chicago line this evening, with a seemingly endless amount of double stacks running in either direction. Train 23K is a daily Mechanicville, New York to Chicago, Illinois intermodal train. Often the majority of this train is composed of single containers instead of doubles. About 20 minutes later, June 8th's train 13Q would roll through town with a variety of BNSF and Union Pacific power. Would we see another meet before the sun disappeared below the horizon? It seemed likely, as Train 21Q, led by one of Norfolk Southern's brand new SD70 ACC rebuilds, sped through STRYKER with the headlight of another eastbound shining in the distance. Since the Chicago line was so congested as an after effect of the derailment at Swanton, we were seeing several trains running under the same symbol on the same day. This was June 8th's 20K, and it would be our last train of the day. After a very successful day of rail fanning the extremely busy Chicago line, we returned to Swanton on June 9th to document 2 passing freight trains at milepost 307. It must have been surreal for the train crews to run through Swanton with so many of the intermodal containers still scattered along the right-of-way. Our last train along the Chicago line in Swanton would yet again be 21Z. In less than 48 hours, Norfolk Southern successfully returned the main line back to service, demonstrating the importance of this busy rail corridor. We hope you enjoyed our in-depth coverage of the derailment at Swanton and the parade of trains on the Chicago line the following day. We'd like to thank our friends, Ed and Tia, for allowing us to film the aftermath of the derailment from their property. And to our viewers, thank you for watching When the Levee Breaks. Until next time, happy railroading from all of us at Delay in Block Productions.